I'm Robert Burnett, and welcome to the Star Trek The Next Generation cast reunion. Well, guys, my name is Robert Burnett, and I would like to welcome you all here to the 25th anniversary cast reunion of Star Trek The Next Generation, celebrating its high-definition restoration and release on Blu-ray. So welcome, and we're very honored to have you.
Is this going to be like one of those Bravo things where we all, where we all start fighting?
I want to make an observation.
Yeah.
I want to make an observation right away. To me, it looks more like a memorial service. I just want to point out I'm wearing green.
Okay, and so am I.
And there's a little blue here.
Bit of blue.
But look at these guys.
Yeah, I know.
I feel someone died. I remember when these guys were colorful. What happened?
We were wearing spacesuits, Patrick, when we were colorful. We were wearing spandex.
And
Yeah, I think it's
I don't
sad.
recall you ever
Sad.
had an issue with black before.
Oh, don't get him started.
You know what happened? I left California, and I realized there was a world elsewhere where people wore color.
We interviewed Rick Berman, and Rick Berman said when he originally was brought on board for The Next Generation, he said the show had three strikes against it. That it was a sequel series, it was a science fiction series, and it was a syndicated show. And at the time, in 1987, none of these things were currently working on television. When you guys got the gig, when you came in, how did you feel about the series? Was it another job for you? Did you think that it would succeed?
All I remember is being 14 and really excited to be working on a series.
You were famous already. You and LeVar were the only people who were famous already.
The LA Times said, well, there are only two members of this cast anybody's ever heard of. LeVar Burton and Will Wheaton. Oh, that's lovely, I thought. 27 years and...
The Royal Shakespeare Company, we know, Patrick.
27, I know. And you've only been alive 25. When we first met Patrick, it was like, 15 years at RSC, and it's this where I am, you know. And as it got over, as time went on, every 2 years, he'd add another 10 years to the RSC.
And by the time the Romulans attacked, he sat in that chair like this, and you'd have your hair all perfect, and I'd be rocking around the bridge, and Patrick would go, Jonathan, oh, Jonathan, 25 years in the Royal Shakespeare Company for this.
It's all true, all true.
At least the chair fit your butt.
Yeah. At least your chair had arms.
I felt that once they cast me in the role that we were pretty much guaranteed to be a success. I had no doubts about where we were going after that.
Hey, Brent, do you remember meeting outside the little trailer on our last way in? And we were both...
totally.
Yeah.
First day. I remember I ran into you. I knew Gates, and she was the only person I... Well, no, I knew Jonathan, yeah. But no, I knew you, but I didn't like you, right? And...
Nothing's
and
changed.
we were
Now it's
looking at each
changed the
other
other way
like,
around.
I don't know, should we do this?
we were both looking,
Do
should
we
we do
want
this,
to?
should we do this? And
Because
I do remember running into Patrick the very first day on the lot, and I thought, oh, that guy, that's who that is. Because I knew who you were.
You did?
There was a guy from My Claudius.
He was the guy from My Claudius.
Exactly. Well, I thought he was the guy from the movie In the Back Seat, with Ron Steiger.
Aha! Lancelot, welcome to my castle. Today is a great day.
Michael knows every line
Patrick's
ever said, every line he ever said.
But he doesn't remember his own lines.
But when he was actually acting, he couldn't remember his own lines.
Let's go there, shall we?
It's a little early.
Well, I did research because, unlike most of these guys, I was from outside this world of Hollywood. And I went over and they said, they've offered you this job. And I met with my agent the next morning and he started going through the deal. And I'd never had a deal before. And there was one, and he said, and of course, no, 6 years. And I said, what? And he said, 6 years. You sign a contract for 6 years if you do. I said, I can't do that. I have too many things to do. he said, look, don't worry. You'll be lucky to make it through the first season. And he said, talk to anybody you know around town. So I did. 4 days, I drove around and I talked to writers and a few actors, and they all said the same thing. It can't work. You cannot revive an iconic series. Look, you work in the theater in England. Come here for 6 months, make some money, get a suntan, go home. That was how we went into filming the pilot episode. Am I right?
Yeah.
I was living in New York. I mean, I was not out in Hollywood. I was out doing that play, but I was in New York.
Did you have a different name when we started?
Yes, I did. I had my full name on my passport. Cheryl Gates.
And a different birthday?
My thing was unique because, as they know, they were all working together and all had bonded, and I was the last one cast. I mean, it was like they said, oh, we're not casting more, it's all closed, we're done. And then 2 weeks later, they called and said, would you have, part of a Klingon? So it was sort of like one of those things where, once again, it was like you just don't know about that stuff. You kind of go, great, and I'll do the pilot, and they'll be tired of it, by the time the series, and but we didn't feel any of that stuff. I don't think. At least I didn't feel any from the rest of the cast that there was any type of pressure or like, oh my God, what are we going to do? This is an iconic show. I mean, we're just like, hey, this is great.
The first 5 times I saw you, you were in full makeup, and I didn't know who you were when you were out of makeup that time. You remember that? That was very funny. And he's talking to me, and I'm going, who is he? He's talking like we know each other. Yeah. It was pretty
I mean, for the first, I think 6 months, the guy, the security guard wouldn't let me on the set when I was out of makeup.
Oh, but there were other reasons for that.
Still won't let you on, will they?
I think it was your work in chips that
And they wouldn't let me on the set for that. You were Jet Turner and Chips. I'm sorry, you can't.
When did you guys realize the show was working?
I think Marina said it last night, third year. I think third season we kind of went, we're going to be here a little while longer. I don't know. I didn't think that it was going to go
Sooner. I think it was sooner, Brent.
Do you think so?
For me, I think there was a real big turning point, which was when Whoopi came on the show. I think it changed a lot about the outside perception of what we were doing. She was at the top of her game as an actress. She'd won an Oscar.
No, she hadn't. She won the Oscar while she was on
while
the
she
show.
was on the show, but she was a
What season? She
star.
came on the third season?
Second season. And I think everyone, I'm guessing, because I did, went, oh my God, we've got a major feature film star who wants to be on our show as a regular.
she asked me to go to Rick Berman and tell him how much she wanted to be on the show. And he didn't believe me.
Rick called me over the hiatus, and he said, hey, I've got really exciting news. We have a major film star coming on the show. Guess who it is? And I said, well, give me a clue. And he said, Jewish. And I said, Jewish? Oh my God, is Judd Hirsch doing the show? And he said, no, it's Whoopi Goldberg. And I was like, I couldn't believe it.
So when the show achieved that kind of success, Patrick said last year that he had come to grips with the fact that he might be remembered most for Star Trek. You said that in an interview. Do you all feel that same way? And did Star Trek, how did it affect your careers as actors and as people? I mean, was the success welcome? Or was it something that became a problem? Or was it a glorious thing? How did you all feel about what's happened with Star Trek: The Next Generation and that we're here 25 years later still talking about it?
Well, my husband's a musician, and he says that being an actor on Star Trek, especially TNG, because, sorry the other shows, but we were the flagship show, was like a musician being asked to join the Rolling Stones. It's that big, whatever we feel about the franchise, whatever ups and downs we've had, because, there's a good side to being on a successful show, and there's a downside to being on a successful show after that show's over. We are part now of pop culture, and yes, whatever we do, I think in the future, and hopefully we'll all go on and do, wonderful things, that's going to be the defining role that we played. So, and I think it's great. I mean, how many other actors can say that they will be remembered, for eons after they're gone?
I had a good friend who was, in fact, Chris Pine's father,
Right.
Bob Pine. said, you know, I was complaining about something. He says, Michael, you shouldn't complain, you know, or you should be careful who you complain to. Other actors, you know, who haven't been on this thing. And I said, you know, you're right, because, you know, he said, you know, you're on a show that's iconic, you know, you got a character that people know, and, you know, that's like, you know,
It's gold.
what
It's
we,
really
you know,
gold.
what we all strive for. So he said, you know, and I said, you know, you're right, maybe I should shut my big yap.
I think the moment for me when I understood something had happened was late one night, Friday night, driving off the lot, and I lived in the other direction from everybody else. I lived east of Paramount. And I had been told, you know, I was given so much stuff to do with security when I arrived there. As though, you know, London was not one of the most dangerous cities in the world. But one of the things was, do not stop at an ATM at night, especially if it's off the main street. But this night, there was a Bank of America down Melrose, and I pulled in, had to go around the corner, and I'm at the machine getting some money because I have to pay my maid in the morning. Yes, suddenly I have a maid. And
He means a housekeeper.
I'm putting my number in, and I'm waiting for the cash, and as I do, this big old car cruises off the road and into the car park. And there are two big guys in this car, and they turn the lights off, and they sit there looking at me, and I think, oh, Lord, this is it. This is the moment they'd warned me about. So my money arrives, and I grab it, and I put it in my pocket. I turn around, and as I turn around, one of these guys says, hey. I back up against the wall. He says, you're Patrick Stewart, Captain Picard from Star Trek. And I said, yeah. He said, I love this town. And he drove away.
Now it's 25 years later, and they're restoring the show, and it looks like it was shot yesterday, truly. So it's going to be seen again all over the world. It'll be back into syndication. It's going to come back out on high definition, and the process will probably start again, dare I say it, for a new generation of viewers.
You certainly hope.
Well, absolutely. And how, when you look back at the work, when you look back at or do you go back and look at the work at all? And you've done 4 feature films as well. How do you feel about the work itself? How do you feel about the acting, the quality of the programming, and the fact, does it capture a moment in time, or is it timeless?
And I don't think I'm alone. I never go back and watch the work.
Michael Dorn does.
Okay, all right. Well, I certainly know that I don't, and I know that for me, one of the reasons that it was odd was I had, when I had my son, I was still doing the show, and it was weird because we had just gotten action figures, and you know, for him, he saw it and he went, "Oh, a mommy doll," you know, and then he'd see me signing photographs of my face, and I just one day went, "Wow, that really could screw him up to just have a mother who's just signing these things of their face. That's just so weird." And so we never kind of watched it. I thought it was, you know, I went to work. He came to the set. He would watch us all work. He knew everybody. You know, that was Uncle Brent. He knew all the people, but that was just going to work. Remember when we did the first movie and they blew up the ship? I thought Jack would be really excited, and so I brought him in. He was 3, to sort of see the fires and the different thing, and he started sobbing because it was like a bomb had gone off in his home. And I went, oh, wow, you know, this is really it's kind of where he's grown up, and where all of us have grown up in a way.
I mean, I look at the pilot.
Nightly.
Why?
We hadn't quite found ourselves yet, had we?
Not yet, not yet.
We hadn't found ourselves yet, and it was. I think it's very funny, just because we were just so serious.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just like, you know.
I can't watch my performance in the pilot. It was like,
But you're feeling so
Star
much
Trek
pain.
meets Sophie's Choice. It was horrible. It was horrible.
And sadness.
Oh,
for
yeah, see,
both
this is how they mock me. This is how they mock me.
The guy who directed our pilot, though, and helped us all enormously to at least find the characters.
Corey was great.
Corey Allen was just, you know who he is.
He cared about actors. He really was, you know.
He was.
Although he said I was walking to the turbo lift, and he says, "Michael, this isn't the funky chicken." And I said, "What?" And he says, "Stiff soldier, no, you know, just so, you know," because I guess I was pimping. to the propeller. I never thought I did, but, and so and I just remember it for all of us. It was just this whole
Patrick,
thing.
tell
where
him what he
just-
said to you.
Come on. When we were where were we? Observation?
I was encouraged to tell this story. It was in the final days of shooting the pilot, month-long shoot, and it was to be the pullback shot, looking into the windows of 10 forward, Jonathan and myself side by side, looking out at space, and the camera was going to pull back and pull back and pull back and pull back. And it was, in fact, the final shot of the pilot episode. And so we were ready, on our marks, and they roll camera. And instead of calling action, Corey Allen yelled out at the top of his voice, "Patrick, I want you to f*** the universe! Action!"
That wasn't the last. That wasn't the last shot, was it? In the pilot?
Okay, Michael, what was the last shot?
The story's better if it's the last shot, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But it wasn't 10 forward.
7 years.
No, we didn't have 10. We didn't have 10 forward. We didn't have 10 forward in the first season, Patrick.
Sorry, we didn't.
No. He's old. He can't remember.
When Wesley goes onto the bridge for the first time, I thought the bridge was such a cool set, and I did not need to be reminded, like just how cool it was. And I'm walking down the side of the ramp, and Corey is yelling out at me, "Look out the view screen! Now look at Captain Picard! Captain Picard controls the sky, man! He controls the sky!" And I'm like 14, and I'm thinking, yeah, I know. Shut up. Let me enjoy it.
He was deadly serious about the project, and I think it really gave us so much the feeling of we were doing something important, and it was very valuable.
I have to. I don't usually do this for Patrick because we're Brits.
I was going to do the same thing. Go
We're
ahead.
Brits, but I think the fact that one of the reasons the show was such a big hit was that fundamentally good stories, well written, well acted, right? But we had old Baldy here as our captain, and we knew, kind of viscerally, that he was not going to be involved in anything that wasn't excellent. And I think that basically trickled down to the rest of us. I mean, we had a great time.
I think you're absolutely right.
Laughed our socks off.
But we were able to because we came to work prepared. I
Yeah,
do a
we
lot of
came to work
television where
prepared.
people are not prepared. I was talking
But
about
this guy,
earlier.
I remember one scene later on in the series, maybe 5th or 6th season, and the first scene up in the morning was a scene with Patrick and I in his ready room. And I think I must have been quite heavy in the episode because I literally was so tired. I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to go to bed and I'll learn the lines for the scene while they're lighting it in the morning. So I got into makeup, and I couldn't learn lines in makeup because, they're always, you can't. I just couldn't do that. So I'm thinking, okay, we'll have half an hour after we rehearse the shot for me to learn the lines. Well, we didn't. They had pre-lit the scene from the night before. To say I went into a panic would be totally understating it. I could not imagine disappointing this guy by not knowing my lines. And as I was walking to the set, I read them, and I just kept reading them. And through sheer terror, they went in, and I learned the lines.
Well, we were also a group of theater actors. I mean, that was something we talked about a lot too, because you were our captain in that way, and set a high standard, high example. And
I just thought he was just number one on the call sheets.
I made myself cry. Okay.
Did you all, Star Trek, there's even another Star Trek movie being made now. Gene Roddenberry's vision has obviously continued to appeal. Did you all meet Gene, and what were your impressions of him on the show?
Oh, he hired us.
He hired us. He chose us. We were the last of his children.
He coached us.
Yeah.
I auditioned 7 times over 6 weeks to play this part, and in the final few auditions, I had to go to Roddenberry's office with Corey Allen, who we've been talking about. And Roddenberry, I tell this story a lot, so it's but I'll be happy to share it again.
Please.
Roddenberry, who believed so strongly in his vision of the future and this vision of hope that he had for the future, said, in the 24th century, there will be no hunger and there will be no greed, and all of the children will know how to read.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
They, Patrick and I were fresh off the boat from England. And I think probably because Majel, his wife, played my mom, they kind of adopted me. And they made sure, that come, the holidays or whatever, I had somewhere to go. And I'm making myself cry again. So they were like my American mom and dad. Okay,
Well,
let's move on.
The thing that I always thought about Gene was that he was really smart about television. He just knew it. I mean, he'd been writing it for, 40 years by that time, and he, some really iconic shows in the 60s. And he was just really smart. But the one thing that I remember that he did was they gave me nothing in terms of who this character was. Nothing. It was just a name on a piece of paper. And so, I think the first week or something like that, or after I said, Gene, what do you want for this character? I mean, there's nothing to it. And one of the smart things I think that when he said, Michael, just don't pay attention to anything you've seen before or read or anything. Just make it your own. And I think that was a smart thing to do, because when an actor gets a chance to create something, we all go, whoa, and it's so he was really smart about that. And he was one of the few producers that. To this day, I mean, they used to do it quite a bit, but not so much anymore, that was on the set. I mean, he didn't come down every day, but he was down there a lot.
He was always there when Majel was
I
acting.
think I know why he did that. Because Gene may have been smart, but he didn't want me on the show. I had a champion in the producing line who was Robert Justman, who had actually seen me doing something at UCLA. And the next day, Robert Justman had me at Gene's office up there in the hills. And I talked with Gene and left, and apparently Gene Roddenberry said right away, no, he's not right for the captain, not at all. And as the months went by, Robert continued to present my case, and then Rick Berman came on board, and Rick Berman backed him up. And I understand there was a memo that went out. Patrick Stewart's name will never be mentioned again in connection with Star Trek: The Next Generation. I do not want him. So I did get cast anyway, for which I have to thank Corey Allen, because you guys may not know this, but when I did my last audition for the studio, nobody was aware of it, but Corey called me in an hour and a half before my audition, something like 7:30 in the morning. And he met me in another office, another room somewhere, and he worked with me on all my sides for the audition.
I never knew that. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
we did an
Wow.
hour of private work, and he said, when we go in there, I am going to read with you. I'm not going to let the casting director read with you. I can present it. It'll be cool. So
What did he give you? Like, how did he?
He directed me. He gave me notes.
Yeah, like for instance, do you remember?
Michael, it was 25 years ago, and I can't remember breakfast time.
I forgot.
Yeah, sure. But I think Gene came on the set because he would suddenly think, there's that guy, that bald English Shakespearean. What the hell is he doing? And he would come down and sit in the chair and say, what have I done? That's why he was on the set so much.
He couldn't believe it, huh?
Yeah, I couldn't believe it.
2 years later, he's going, what is he doing here?
I thought I said no.
I thought I said no 2 years ago.
How did they sneak him in?
What he said to me once, the weekend before we started shooting, I had said to him, I need some help, Gene. I like you had done, I think perhaps all of us felt the same. He took me for dinner at the Bel Air Country Club. And we talked about golf for an hour and a half. And I know nothing about golf, which meant Gene talked. And then I said, Gene, Captain Picard. And he said, oh, okay, it's perfectly simple. You've heard of Horatio Hornblower? And I said, yeah, the iconic seafaring novels. He said, read Horatio Hornblower, Jean-Luc Picard is there. And that was the only piece of advice he ever gave me.
You're the only people that understand this experience. What is something that is when you try and explain to somebody what the experience of being on this show and talking, like you said last night, it was like being the Beatles. How would you explain that to somebody that doesn't understand?
So you've compared us to the Beatles and to the Stones in the last 24 hours.
Well, we have screaming fans too, and
Would you compare us to The Who so that we can get that Brit rock trifecta?
Well, I was going to bring up Sting because that's how I felt the first time I went to a convention.
Well, actually, I have to say, now that you've brought up Sting, we did a convention at the Royal Albert Hall in England, which was probably the highlight of our Star Trek experience. Certainly one of them. Prior to that, my attendance at the Royal Albert Hall was to go and see Sting, which was about 6 months before I got Star Trek. And I remember walking towards the Royal Albert Hall because you have to park, 3 miles away, it's London. And I'm walking towards it with all these hordes of people with my best friend Jan. And I remember saying to her, oh my goodness, all these people are going to see one person. Can you imagine that, Jan? Can you imagine that? Cut to, it's us.
But the experience of 7 years, I think it's different for everybody. But I think that it's almost indescribable. It's almost a lot of things. I mean, it's like you're in college with the same people for 7 years, and every day is the same. It's the same thing in terms of you're going to see these people, you're going to laugh, you're going to have a great time, and it's kind of hard to describe it because it was so different than anything that I've been involved with.
We got on from day one. I mean, I remember on the first day of shooting, I was convinced we were all going to get fired because we were laughing so much. I mean, and before the filming even started, I remember sitting in the makeup trailer for the makeup tests, and in walked this guy. He's a force of nature, by the way, and he just blew in. The energy level went up like 3,000%, and there was this like electric energy between us. I don't know. I wish I'd asked Gene while he was still with us, because he cast us. So I wanted to ask him now. Did you take that into account when you were casting us? Was that an element of the choice of who was playing the part, or was it just a wonderful accident? That these.
Haven't you always thought it was lightning in a bottle that this?
I don't believe you can create the kind of chemistry that we produce when we're together.
Do you think he knew it?
I don't think so. I don't think it was conscious at all. It was its own thing. I think they chose very carefully for each and every character, but I don't think you can go into a casting process trying to make magic. That's just ridiculous.
I remember being in my 20s and I saw you somewhere. I don't remember. I think I may have come into audition for you. And
He made you audition, Will? Jonathan.
I don't think he made me. I think.
Oh, the producers.
I
It wouldn't
think-
have been Johnny. That's true. Yeah.
And I remember asking you. I said, "This is the way I remember it. Like, I remember that we all loved each other, and I remember that we all got along, and I remember that we were a family. And I've always wondered since I became an adult if it was really like that, or if I was just sort of sheltered from things because I was a kid."
Oh, it was really.
I liked it. I liked everybody except her. I hated her guts. 2 years.
But what you said was, yeah, it was like that. And you said the same thing you just said. You said it was lightning in a bottle. That we got that.
I mean, for 7 years, and then all through the movies, I remember feeling in the way in at 6 or 6:30 after you guys had already been there for hours.
Yeah.
I look forward to where I'm going this morning. I'm going to spend the next 12, 14 hours with clever, talented, funny, thoughtful, caring, ironic, nutty people. And
It's like that saying, isn't it? If you do a job that you love, you'll never work a day in your life, right?
I've recently been doing a program in which I had to talk to professional soldiers. In fact, the parachute regiment in England, and these are high-class, elitist soldiers. And they were talking about the trust and dependency each one of them has on the other, knowing they will never be left behind. There will always be somebody that will have your back. There will always be someone looking out for you. There is no philosophy of me, 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 me in the parachute regiment. Well, that's exactly what it felt like on our show. You knew if you fell, if you stumbled, somebody would catch you. They may make a joke about you stumbling and falling.
I was going to say, it's kind of catching you.
Yeah, but that would make it even
catch.
better because it wouldn't matter so much that you'd made a fool of yourself. I felt supported and loved every moment of the way, and you cannot legislate for that. It is what LeVar says. It happened that one felt dependent and at the same time, I felt like I was a kind of a safekeeper for these people as well.
There was also the element, I think, of gratitude. Does anybody, and I'm not certain I remember it correctly, but I have a memory of the first table read and then walking over to...
in Universal City. It wasn't even on the lot.
Yeah. But maybe it wasn't the first table read. I remember walking over to El Cholo's and having lunch.
Right.
Right? When was that?
I can't remember.
It was our first day as a company on the set.
By the way.
It was Lucy's. It was Lucy's
El
across the
Adobe,
street.
and you paid, man.
Well,
He was the only famous one. He was the only famous one. Of course he paid.
I had never seen an actor pick up the check for a group of other actors before.
the feeling of walking over there, going over, we were in 2s and 3s, and then coming back, we were in different groupings, and I just remember feeling, I like these people.
Yeah.
I enjoy these people. I think we're going to be okay.
Do you remember, like, I think it was called Angel One or something? There was one episode where we all thought, oh my God, this is so sexist when we got the script. And really upset. And this is, for me, this was a major point because I felt, God, this is really a sexist script. I feel weird about doing this. And the fact that all of us felt the same way, and the fact that you were willing to take it up with the studio and made the call and got some changes. And that really impressed me because I thought, you know, you are our leader in that way. You are willing to take it on yourself and know that you are supported by us. But I also remember one time he was in the trailer, we were in the trailer together, and you and I both had come up with something that we were hoping we could get changed in this little scene. And you said, darling, I'll show you how to do it. And you did this call, and you said, well, I don't know, we were thinking something like, and then you said the line. And then you went through like 15 minutes where they were suggesting all these other things or whatever, and then they came up with a line that you had first said, and you said, yes, that's perfect, right? And you said, that's how you do it. And it was like, yes.
That technique still works with producers.
I think part of that experience of us all being friends and instantly adoring each other also led to daily work that was really, I remember when I'd see the call sheet for the next day and what I was going to be doing the next day and who I was going to be working with, it was always fun to see who you were going to, whether it was going to be 2 of us or 4 of us or which one grouping it was going to be that day. It was always good. Whoever it was, oh good, I'm working with Jonathan and Marina today. Oh good, but best of all was when we were all together. On the bridge
days. Bridge days.
Everyone has a different dynamic. I mean, and strong personalities, but not, you know, in terms of John's personality is not like Marina's, and everybody is so distinct. And so each like Brent was saying, each scene that you did with somebody, you knew you were in for that personality. You knew what was going to happen, you know. And it's just
That was part of the success of the show, was that the colors of the different actors were
just incredible, you know, like distinctiveness for everybody. And I said this the
Go ahead, Mike.
I swear.
I don't want you to hurt me, which is why I'm letting you go on talking.
See, I kept in shape too, and I could just pop you one. See, I forgot what I was going to say.
Yes! Yes! It still works. Well done. But you know, if there's one regret that I have,
Oh, I know what I was going to say. The one thing that I enjoyed, and I think, is that, and everybody in their own way has this distinct humor, and everybody is hilarious, and everybody is really funny, but it's distinct. I mean, it's just there's just no other one like it. I mean, everybody, and I found that to be just enjoyable to do. Okay, now, gone.
Hear to everything that Michael says. I have a regret about this show. The work that I've been doing in the past, I'd worked with some outstanding British actors.
I like it.
There you go. Yeah. And really fancy people.
As opposed to us.
No. Let me go where I'm going with this. I think I'm correct to say that in 7 years, nobody on our show, no actor, ever got a nomination for any award of any kind. Season after season after season, it would leave me speechless that yet again, the work that I had seen actors doing, the quality work that would be considered outstanding anywhere, but for some reason, our little syndicated science fiction show.
Three curses you refer to.
It just was never taken seriously in the same way that other shows were. And it continues to be a source of irritation to me that the quality of the work was never acknowledged in that way. Did I miss something? Did you win something, Michael? And I don't.
Nominated for an NAACP award.
NAACP award for Best Actor in a Series.
Did you win, Dorney?
No.
Sorry.
It was rewarding, however, when finally in our last season, we were nominated for Best Dramatic Series, which was kind of
Cool when we got
amazing.
the SAG award.
Did we get a SAG award?
Yeah. We got the first
We got the first
honorary SAG award.
honorary cast SAG award.
That's cool.
I didn't know that, actually. Thank you, Johnny.
But yeah, but
that
it-
means
it-
I've
yeah.
won 2 SAG awards.
And I think it was that syndication thing. Was that part
That
of
was
it? Do you think?
I think it was because it was. I mean, if you actually, if you look at the ratings now on Wednesday in the LA Times, everything is rated. Cable shows, reality shows. When we were
Yeah, we
on
were
TV,
only rated if we were on a
you know,
network.
you were only rated if you were on a network show.
Next Generation was the first scripted drama made directly for syndication.
I mean, we
Invented first-run syndication.
We invented first-run syndication, exactly,
Well,
and Gene Roddenberry
to
did.
their benefit.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think, I heard somewhere that if we had been, if our ratings had been included in the Nielsen ratings at the time, we would always have been in the top 20. Mm-hmm. Certain shows would have made possibly the top 5. I think just knowing that kind of gives me a warm feeling, despite the fact that it wasn't apparent at the time.
I still believe that for the time, we were the best acting cast on television.
I agree.
I genuinely believe that, and I'd go to the mat and argue with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I think pound for pound, there wasn't a better ensemble on TV, and I'm pretty proud of that.
Guys would come down on the set and watch one another's scenes. When there was a really strong scene coming up in an episode, you'd look around and your pals didn't have to be there, but they hadn't gone home. They'd be watching.
I remember when Majel, God rest her soul, was still alive, and she wanted to have the girls of Star Trek. We went out for dinner. She took us out for dinner, and I think Voyager had started, because Kate joined us, and Kate said to me, Majel tells me that you come on the set for off-camera dialogue. You guys always come on the set for off-camera dialogue. And I said, honey, we come on the set for off-camera looks.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And she was gobsmacked, absolutely gobsmacked.
It was just normal, and you don't, like I said, you work on shows now, not all shows, but a lot of shows, they just don't do that. They're done with their lines and
They're gone.
they're gone.
During the course of the series, you had tremendous fans such as Stephen Hawking, who came on and did an episode with you guys. I mean, what was it like having someone like Hawking or others visit the set and then actually be incorporated into the show? That had to be pretty amazing.
Hawking was amazing. Do you remember when he wrote between solving, I wish I could quote him properly. He wrote with his magic, between solving quantum physics problems, I like to sneak in the occasional TV appearance.
That's right.
Brent worked with him.
I worked with him, but it was something I was telling you about earlier, which was incredible. Between takes, when they were setting up for the next moment, his team would take him to the next soundstage, and there was a small room there that was almost like a closet, and they would put him in that room and close the door, and he'd be alone in this room until we got ready to shoot again. And I was horrified when I saw it. I thought, oh my God, they're just tucking him away. And I asked his wife and his nurse, what's going on? You just put him in a room like that? And they said, that's what he wants. He likes to be alone in a small room so he can think. And he thought some pretty amazing thoughts in that room, I think. Yeah.
I mean, at the other end of the spectrum, George Michael had a cousin who was a huge fan of the show. But the only way that George Michael's cousin could get on the set was if George Michael came with him. So we had George Michael come visit. It was a day that I wasn't working, but trust me, I was there. Greek Londoner, I was there. So we had some pretty amazing, even if they weren't
Ronald Reagan.
even if they weren't, you know,
Colin
Powell.
That was a. I had the day off, but I came in to experience that.
He had the
football. Yeah, he had the football.
And these guys, I mean, we were all invited by Al Gore to Washington.
I remember the Mercury 7. That was unbelievable. We were invited to D.C., and the real astronauts were there up on stage, and they were so heroic, weren't they?
It was a celebration of Alan Shepard's first flight, and they invited us, the Mercury astronauts and us. And we spent a day at the Vice President's house with all of them. It was
They
unbelievable.
were amazing, absolutely amazing.
We've all had this experience where we meet an astronaut, we meet someone who has actually been in outer space. And we say, it is so cool that you've been in outer space. And they say, it's so cool that you've been on the Enterprise. And then we say, what? Like, you did it, man, like for real. And every single time. Well, yeah, but I just wanted to be doing what you guys do.
It's like, and you want to tell them, say, look, yeah, this is great, but, every day that we went on set, there wasn't a chance that the set was going to explode.
Right, big difference.
There was just no, you
Yeah.
know.
But we were signing autographs for them, and they were signing autographs for us.
Because the Challenger happened.
It was fantastic.
No, before. Challenger
It was before. What was the one that happened? There was some.
Columbia.
Yeah.
Just recently.
Yeah.
After 2000, I paid a visit to Secretary Albright's office. The administration was over. And she was busy, and her assistant said, let me show you around, and you can see some of the things that Secretary Albright has been given during her years in the White House. And it was a really attractive, charming exhibition. Then we came to the door to her office. On either side of the door, there were two photographs. On the left was the photograph of the Clinton cabinet, with Secretary Albright sitting next to the President of the United States. On the other side of the door was a photograph taken at their on-screen wedding with Secretary Albright standing next to Jean-Luc Picard. And she said, do you know which one she's most proud to point out to visitors? You guys.
That was exciting when she came. It was late at night.
That was the day that I was working on Nemesis, and I thought that was so cool.
Because I loved her, thought she was an amazing woman.
Well, how is that now? You have people coming up to you every day at events like this that in awe, people that really, they can't tell the difference between an actor and the character that the actor plays. And what is it like? Is there a responsibility? Do you have a responsibility to fans?
I meet people now who are, I turned 40 this year, and I meet people who are, and I will eventually catch you guys. And I meet people now who are plus or minus 3-5 years my age, and they're physicists and they're engineers and they're doctors, and they do it because they identified with the character that I played. They tell me, and they tell me all the time. I mean, people who tell me that, my parents and I had nothing in common when I was growing up except Star Trek, and I love that we had that in common, and they tell me, so thank you for being part of that. And now I'm sharing Star Trek with my kids, and I absolutely feel a responsibility to honor that, and to not minimize it, and to realize how lucky we all are to have been part of something that can touch lives in a way that a lot of pop culture entertainment just is not capable of doing.
I think certainly, I completely agree with that. And I think that from the very, very beginning, fans seemed to be really excited that there was a female doctor. Mm-hmm. And because that was sort of really a big change, and that there was someone who was a mother, and that she was in a high command position. There were so many women who came up and said, I became a doctor, mm-hmm. I became a scientist, I'm a nurse, I'm a, whatever, I'm doing neurology, and their mothers too. And it really meant so much, I think, to a lot of women to have that kind of a role, where you were not just someone who looked a certain way or someone who was the mother, but you also had a command position and worked with science. And I think that is great,
I think it's part of the importance that Star Trek has taken on in our culture, and its inspirational nature. That's a huge part of its value. Star Trek has always been inspirational. Yeah. And Gene's vision has always been inspirational. Star Trek was responsible for the first interracial kiss on television in America. In a time when we were at the beginning of what became the Cold War, Gene had a Russian, an Asian, and a black woman in command positions on the bridge of the original Enterprise. Star Trek has always made a statement about who we are and where we're going. And I don't think that the inspirational value that underpins all of that can be underestimated.
And as actors as well, I mean, did you expect to have that experience when you first started the show, that people would be coming up to you even yesterday?
No. We're just actors. We learn our lines, hit the mark, and jump up into the furniture. I mean, that's.
I knew Star Trek was a big deal. I loved the original Star Trek, and I knew that it was a thing that people really cared about, but I didn't think I'd be sitting here.
But even 25 years later, do you still feel? Is there ever going to be a time in your lives when you go, I'm done now? I don't want to talk about this anymore.
It's possible. It may happen.
Yeah. I was talking to LeVar there. They said, LeVar, there's going to come a time when it's not going to be, cute anymore. And I said, I want you to let me know, whatever. And I say this to everybody. There's going to be a day when it's going to be like time.
I think there are two things. Because we were really talking about going to conventions, and I agree. I think there probably is a time, and I hope I know when that time is, to retire, to hang it up. But I don't think there'll ever come a time where I am not proud of being a part of this.
No.
But you see, sometimes you see things, you go, like we were saying, that person stayed too long at the party.
You don't want to be a party remnant.
No. But there are other qualities about this show which make it continue to resonate. And a little tiny anecdote: of all the mail that I received, we all received, there is one that stands out. It was from a sergeant in the Las Vegas Police Department. And he wrote to me about his work and his job. And he ended the letter by saying, there are days when I despair of humankind, when what I have seen and experienced on the streets of this city or in holding cells makes me want to give everything up, because nothing is worth fighting for. But when I go home, I go into my study and I take down an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation, and it helps me to believe that it will be better.
I'm gonna get.
And I
I'm
go to
sorry.
work the next day on the strength of it.
There are moments like that that I think we've all heard that have just knocked us out. I had a moment recently at a convention where a young woman came to the table I was signing at, and she said, I don't know if you know this, but your character was sort of the poster boy for children with Asperger's syndrome. And she said, and I was one of those children. And she said, because I could watch the show and see somebody grappling with how to express themselves and how to understand humanity. And it was the only character on television that was like me. And I had no idea, but it was overwhelming.
Yeah, mine was in Vegas, actually. Funny that a guy come up, and it was a Klingon breakfast, so everybody was dressed as Klingon, stuff like that. And this guy came up to me, full Klingon stuff. I mean, it looked great. And he says, you know, you saved my life. What are you talking about, you know? And he says, yeah, he was in drugs and alcohol. He lost his job, he lost his family, everything. And he said that just the way that the character was written and the way that, you know, he was portrayed and all that stuff, it was honor and, you know, and strength and blah, blah, blah. He went all through this whole thing. And I said, you know, I mean, I appreciate this, you know, but it was you that did it. You did it, you know. He says, I get it, but you really, and, you know, you kind of go, you know, and for all the other moments that we have, it's just those moments that you kind of go, if one person is helped, then it makes
It's
it
like
worth
the
it.
mythology of our times. You know, it's like we are the way there's always been a mythology for every major culture. And that is what I started to realize, was that I'm a part of it in a way that just it happened, but it's a very significant mythology because it is a positive message, and it talks about the possibility of things that we don't have now. And we often are in such despair of the way the culture is and whatever. And even the way the television culture and the film culture, sometimes I feel, wow, you know, what are the messages we're giving? And it's quite remarkable to comprehend how important this has been to many, many, many people all over the world. That's the part, isn't it? It's not just America, it's all over the world. And it's astonishing. You know, people will say, yeah, it's dubbed in Argentinian and it's in this and that. And so the positive message does resonate, and Lord knows we need, you know.
I think one of the reasons that people are still watching the show, and they are, because, I mean, I was just in England. It was still on every day. We're kind of the counterbalance, I made for parents, for families, we're kind of the counterbalance of what is happening in today's TV, where we're rewarding bad behavior. You know, the stars of today, and I'm talking reality, obviously, which I never watch, unless it's a talent show. The stars of today are people who are becoming appallingly rich by behaving heinously. And so I think parents and families, they can just go to Star Trek and say, you know what, this is a better role model, this is a better, you know, this is a better way to live. And I think that's one of the reasons that we'll go on.
I got a question for you guys. Do you think that while we were doing it, and forget about us for a second, but do you think the writers and producers had that in mind when they were writing and producing these
from
things?
the original show, if you like LeVar said, you know, there were shows about drug addiction. When the original show was on, it was in that kind of the heyday of civil rights, and that was dealt with on the show. And when we started, I always felt that, I mean, and this is what I think separated us and the original cast from the shows that came after. I think that you look at many of our shows, and we were doing a little morality play every week, you know. And as LeVar said yesterday, you can sit and watch the show for pure entertainment. But if you are of that ilk, you get what we're trying to say. And there are very few shows.
Well, those were Gene's marching orders that we're making a morality.
I saw Melinda Snodgrass at Comic-Con last year, and I asked her that exact question. And she said, absolutely. that is exactly what they
The
wanted
best
to
way
do.
to teach people is not to preach at them, is to teach them through entertainment.
But also look at the technology stuff. I mean, it's so prescient what all of the writers have. I mean, futurists and techies go nuts. From the first show to our show, the way the computer was always talking to us, just the way we connected. It's really the way we are living. People are always connected to technology, and I didn't quite get it because now, of course, you know, when you have kids and they're all their heads down here, or even any interview, you have to do multitasking, and we really did that as characters on the ship because we had to be talking to the computer, looking at this, talking and holding a prop and whatever.
Now, actually, I have to ask you.
LeVar said something. We were talking about technology. We were talking about, oh my God, couldn't believe it. Now we can look at the phone and talk to people. You know, like there's their face and you're talking to them, just like way beyond almost Star Trek. And I said, where do you think it's going to end? He goes, boop, boop.
Yeah, that's it.
You know,
Sure.
where you just go,
Now, LeVar, I have to ask you
dial
a question.
Patrick.
LeVar, I'm going to ask you a question. Being the Luddite in the group here, do you think it's because I wasn't a technological person on the show and I was the empath?
I think that we all were cast with very specific energy signatures, and we all brought exactly what was needed for the whole to the party.
Big Dumb Stupid War.
Big Dumb Stupid Dwarf, yeah.
I'm very proud of that. Uh-oh. No, that's what Johnny. That was Johnny's line. We were doing a table read, and Johnny goes, he was not happy with the line because it was so obvious. And he goes, God, this is so obvious. Even Big Dumb Stupid Wart can see that. and I went, yeah, I can.
That could have been the last table read where we said,
I think that was it.
this is so cliched. We were never invited back.
Hackneyed.
Well, I think, you know, to sum up the experience, I sort of now to put a button on all this. It's 25 years later. The show is now being re-released. It's in a high definition. It looks amazing. Your work is now going to be preserved for all eternity in the most technologically advanced way possible. What are your thoughts about this final release and that 25 years later that it is coming out yet again?
I'm happy that it's high def when I was 25 years younger. Actually, I would hate it to be high def now.
Just to be real short, I like the idea. I think it's a great idea. I think it's going to be beautiful and all that, but it just solidifies our relationship, which is what I love. You know, just 25 years later, that's all I can think about is 25 years later, we're still together. And that to me is just, you know.
And that it holds up, right? The work holds up. It is exceptional storytelling, incredibly well acted, and that's timeless.
I've seen the Blu-ray. I've seen a little bit of the Blu-ray, and up until I saw it, I always felt, with all the technology that's happened, since we finished, that our show was looking a little dated. You know, it just wasn't looking current. I watched the Blu-ray, and like you said, it looks like we shot it yesterday with state-of-the-art equipment. It looks amazing, so I'm thrilled.
Well, that was, I think, a testament to everybody that you worked with, the foresight they had in terms of the way the show was produced. It was incredibly well done, and all the elements were preserved to the point where it does look. And I think it's your performances and character that really sell the show, and that's what people keep coming back for. And it's great to have had you guys together to talk like this, to sort of put an exclamation point on the release.
However, you said when you introduced this winding up note, that this would be the last. Don't be so sure.
Exactly the same thing.
Oh, really?
Right.
Don't be so sure.
Sure.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I absolutely. Wait until we get the holodeck version, the three-dimensional, when we're there in the room.
Version where you too can be on the Enterprise with us going through these adventures. And,
Oh, God. We'll be in your homes.
I was very upset. I was very upset when they were going to close the actors' home. In the actors' home in Woodland Hills. Because we used to talk about it on the set, that we would all be in there, watching reruns of ourselves. Look how cute I was when I was young. And Michael Dorn said, yes, but your hair will still be black.
Jet black.
Jet black.
Well, will there be maybe perhaps another Next Generation movie?
I doubt it. I doubt it. Unless they do what they did with the original cast, and cast people playing us younger, maybe.
Well, Riker.
I'll play right.
There's Riker right there. There's Riker right there. Yeah.
You know, the digital stuff they're doing now, there's no telling what they can do, you know? I mean, we may all be children again.
Will be different when they do the Next Generation. Our response to that will
Yeah, because we're not seeing
perhaps
ourselves.
be not quite so generous.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it surprising that, I mean, we're going to approach the franchise's 50th anniversary, and there have been seldom I think in human history, has any kind of pop culture icon done this.
And on that note, maybe, because I think we have to be somewhere.
Well, I want to thank you all for being here. It was a tremendous honor for me, and I know for the viewers to sort of get a glimpse into who you guys are as people not at a convention, but sitting around here in our lovely living room.
Thank you
Space
for
living room.
inviting us.
Thank you very much.
Well done. Thank you.